Okay, so have you ever felt like your career is this big game, but nobody ever gave you the rule book? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to crack open a playbook designed to help the next generation of women leaders not just play that game, but completely change it. All right, let's just start with the numbers. Take a look at this. Women make up almost half of the entire US workforce. That's a huge, powerful presence, right? But what happens when we start looking up that corporate ladder? That's when things start to get a little weird. Yeah, that number just plummets. When we look at corporate officers in the Fortune 500, it drops all the way down to just 15.7%. It's like a missing step on the ladder, that broken rung you hear about. And believe it or not, the climb gets even tougher from here. And then there's this. This is the one that really hits home. Only about 3% of CEOs are women. I mean, just look at that gap between presence and power. It's undeniable. You know, this quote from author Selena Rezvani just nails it. She says, progress can look obvious from a distance. And it's so true, right? But then, she adds, yet when you look up at the top jobs, the numbers thin out fast. That really captures that frustrating feeling perfectly. So here's where we need to shift our thinking. This whole situation, it is not about a lack of ambition or a lack of capability. It's about a lack of strategy. And the great thing about a strategy is it's something you can learn, it's something you can build, and it's something you can absolutely execute on. And this is that playbook. We're going to break it down into a 5-part strategy. We'll start with finding your purpose, then we'll move on to building your reputation, growing your network, advocating for yourself, and finally, we're going to talk about understanding office politics. All right, first things first, finding your purpose. You know, real sustainable momentum in your career, it starts when what you do every day actually means something to you, when it lights you up. That's the fuel that makes all the hard work actually feel worth it. But okay, that sounds great, right? Find your purpose. How do you actually do that? Well, let's try a really simple but super powerful tool from the source material. It's called the Dream Biography. Okay, so take a second and really think about these questions. What kind of work makes you totally lose track of time? You know, you look up and hours have gone by. Or what's a compliment that when you hear it, it just really means something to you? And maybe the big one, if money was no issue at all, what would you still get up and do every day? Your answers to these questions, they're pointing you right towards your purpose. Okay, so once you've got that purpose as your anchor, we can move on to strategy number 2, building your reputation. This is all about taking that internal fire and turning it into external credibility. And you do that through 2 things, the results you get and the relationships you build. And this leads to a really key idea. Every job you have is actually 2 jobs. On one hand, you've got the technical stuff, the specific skills and knowledge for your role. But on the other hand, there's the general stuff, skills like communication, teamwork, influence. The thing is, you have to be great at both to really succeed. So here's a little homework for you, a really powerful exercise you can literally start today. For the next 2 weeks, track your work, but in 2 separate columns. In one, write down your technical wins, like completing a big report. In the other, your relationship wins, like clearing up a misunderstanding between 2 teams. At the end of 2 weeks, take a look. If one of those columns is looking a little empty, well, now you know exactly where you need to focus. All right, so your credibility is building, people are starting to notice your great work. The next step is to expand who knows about it. That brings us to strategy number 3, grow your network. This is how you unlock those opportunities that you'd never even hear about otherwise. Look, let's just be real for a second. The word networking, it makes a lot of us just cringe, right? It feels so awkward and transactional. So let's reframe it. Stop thinking about it like you're putting on a performance. Instead, think about it as making real connections with people over things you both care about, just building trust. A really smart way to do this is to build what you can think of as your personal board of directors. And no, I'm not talking about just one person. You need a few key players. You need a mentor who's going to give you the honest, tough feedback. You need a peer, someone on your level who just gets the company culture. And, this one is crucial, you need a sponsor. That's a senior leader who will actually speak up for you, who will advocate for you when the important decisions are being made behind closed doors. Okay, so you've got your purpose, you're building a solid reputation, and your network is growing. Now it's time for the 4th strategy. You have to advocate for yourself. This is about making sure all that effort, all that hard work actually turns into real advancement. And here we go with another word that can feel kind of scary: negotiation. A lot of us see it as this big, confrontational fight. But what if we reframed it? What if, instead of a conflict, we saw it as just self-advocacy? It's not about being demanding. It's about problem solving for your own future. It's essential. So before you walk into any conversation about a raise, a promotion, whatever it is, you need to ask yourself one single critical question. What's my leverage? And here's the key. Your leverage isn't just a feeling or an opinion. It's built on cold, hard facts. It's those results you delivered. Remember that 2-column list? It's the big problems you solved. It's the clients you kept from leaving. It's the special knowledge you have that will be really hard and really expensive to replace. When you can connect that stuff to what the company cares about, your case is practically bulletproof. And that brings us to our fifth and final strategy. This is one that can feel tricky, maybe even a little intimidating, but it's so important. We need to talk about understanding office politics. And let's be super clear, this is not about being manipulative. It's about being aware. So what even are office politics? When you boil it down, they're just the unwritten rules of your workplace. It's that invisible stuff that really determines who has influence, how timing works, and who actually gets listened to. And it's often totally different from the official org chart. And the good news is, you can navigate all this with total integrity. Here's how. First, just be an observer. Pay attention to what behavior actually gets rewarded, not just what the company posters say. Second, start to map out the influence. Who are the real decision makers? Who are the connectors? And finally, protect your own credibility like it's gold. Stay out of the gossip and always speak in facts. You know, this quote really ties it all together perfectly. The key message here is to stop relying on hope and start using strategy. Advancement isn't about wishing and hoping. It's about having a plan and taking action. So, as we wrap this up, I've got one last question for you. Looking back over this whole playbook: purpose, reputation, network, advocacy, and politics, what is the one thing, just one strategy, you're going to put into action this week?